It's that time again. It's the Berkey and the Badger Board Game Babble Show. It's going to get wild. It's going to get wacky. It might even get a little zany. We're going to talk about board games and the board game industry. And, you know, we might talk about anything else we want to talk about.
Hey, hey, hey! It's the Berkey and the Badger Board Game Babble Show! Woohoo!
Yay!
Well, this is your Honorable King Berkey, and we're broadcasting live from Babblot, directly streaming on YouTube and SteamYard to Facebook all over the world. And please welcome our enjoyable court jester, Sir Badger the Brave. Tell us what's going along in Babblot there, sir, and what's going on this show.
Yes, this is episode 85.
85 episodes, wow.
We're getting there. We're nearly at 1 million. We'll be there soon.
1 million seconds.
1 million seconds of podcast airing. That's what we're
not 1 million views, just 1 million seconds of broadcast excellence.
Yes, that's what we want. That's what
broadcast excellence.
Okay. In this podcast, we are going to have a talk about what's been happening in Babblot, what's been happening where we are, and then we're going to go into our roundup of rumors in things that make the king go for slipping slickly into our good, the bad, and the ugly section, which is our first impression segment, before finishing off with our Babble topic. Every time I get to that word, my mouth doesn't.
It's English. It's English. Yeah. What do you expect?
Yeah, it's a chocolate bar as well. I don't know if it still exists, but the topic was like a nut crunchy caramelly thing. But anyway, our Babble subject, which is Read It Again, where we talk about rules and should they be simple? Should they be hard? Or should they just be? Should they be generic? But anyway,
maybe we shouldn't even have them. No rules, baby.
It'd be a sand pit then, wouldn't it?
It just wouldn't work, would it, for games?
No, it wouldn't work for games at all.
A game without a rule would be like a Berkey without a Badger.
Or Berkey without a beard.
Oh, you like the luxuriant beard here that's growing so fluffily?
Oh, it is. Is that for a particular reason? What's happening in the royal throne room at the moment, sire?
Well, what happened was, COVID hit. And in November in Minnesota, we always have no shave November, so I don't shave my beard. And I thought, I haven't got anywhere to go. I'm letting this baby go. And thus the kids got to enjoy Santa Claus at Christmas. And I don't know, I'm kind of, if I have to cut it off, I think every hair will scream.
That may be an interesting sound. I would like to have that recorded.
Well, maybe in our upcoming Game Toppers Kickstarter, we'll have a stretch goal. If we hit like $1 million or something, Berkey has to dye it purple or shave it off. And then I'll look like I'll have a baby face, so I look really young when I don't have facial hair. Dye it purple or...
I'm glad you said dye it there, because I remember a little while ago you were saying you were fasting. How is that going?
It's actually gone pretty well. I was doing intermittent fasting and keto. And when COVID, I was fine initially, but the more inactivity I had, I was gaining some weight. And I thought, I got to do something here. And so I started doing that, which I've done regularly anyway, every other year. But I've lost 28 pounds, and I'm just beautifully plump.
That's good to know. I mean, I've still got my Christmas weight. It's just slightly come off a little bit, but what can you do? What can you do when the food and drink is so good here? It doesn't matter how much you kind of moderate yourself and how much exercise you do. It just doesn't seem to want to come off. I think I'm at that age. where it doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to move.
Well, it was a lot easier when I was 30 and 40 years old, but after 40 years, it was like every year gaining 5 pounds, and then, have to, just my activity and metabolism isn't what it used to be. So I sit in the office a lot nowadays as well. So I have to be more deliberate, and I'm not great at it.
No, I do the same. Every hour I stop, down tools, I walk around the house, I do something, I do a bit of gardening, and that passes a bit of time, and then it's back into the office and cracking on, and then moving again.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's happening in your neck of the woods, sir?
Well, in my neck of the woods, things are, as you know, but people watching do not know, things have lightened up. Titan came out in March, the soundtrack, that is. The board game is on its way. It's nearly here.
Cool.
But yeah, the soundtrack is out. That's one weight off my shoulders. Today, I've just been uploading to my distributors the Kemet soundtrack for the Kemet board game Kickstarter, which was last year. That is now done as well, because I had both those soundtracks on my shoulders. Plus, intermittently, Lucky Duck were contacting me about effects and music for their Chronicles of Crime game. So, I can step back and take a breather for a while now, because both those big soundtracks are done. I can distress, ready for when the 7th Citadel hits. And then that's another big project. That's going to be 10. It's going to be like the original. There's going to be 10 environments, which I need to provide music and sound effects for. And I'm going to try and make them bigger, longer, more kind of realistic as well, because the first one was very synthy, but then it started getting a bit more kind of organic, orchestral. Now I have the power to do that. So hopefully this new one's going to be blow your mind. It's going to be Hans Zimmer. So yeah, soundtracks are plenty.
I love him.
And it's just in time as well, because it's gardening season. So time to start planting stuff.
Yeah, it's been kind of like that here in Minnesota. We've had an unusually warm April. We had one day where it was actually 70 degrees. That very rarely happens. On Easter, actually, it was 70 degrees.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen much. We've had 3 days straight of rain, and now everything's starting to turn green. It's only 45 degrees out right now, but the grass is getting green. And the thing that I love doing the most, the most cathartic thing in my daily routine type of stuff is doing the yard work. I love mowing my lawn. I love getting the garden prepped. I don't like picking weeds, so I leave that to other folks. But but I love the whole springtime, doing all the things in the yard, fixing the fence, and all that kind of stuff. I love doing that. Yeah. Listen to my podcasts and feel like I can get reconnected with the hobby, with all my favorite media folks. But now we've got our big Kickstarter coming April 20th, and everything's starting to turn green outside. And I'm like, there's this, am I going to have time to go do my yard work? Because I work from morning till night. It's been a crazy event doing a Kickstarter, especially with the type of complexity that ours has. So all of my time has been pretty much devoted to making sure that goes off well,
Rob has joined us in the castle and saying, "Look at that glorious beard." Glory is not the word.
Live chat. All right.
I'm trying to think what is the word. It's a word that exceeds glory. It's more.
That's loud peg, Sir Robert of Rouse. Love the pegs. Love the pegs.
Mm.
I remember that was one of my first favorite podcasts, was listening to Blue Peg, Pink Peg. I was doing this great big stone job, and this was probably about 7 years ago now, 7 years ago. It's about 7 years ago, and I had just started finding out about all these different media creators, and I found Blue Peg, Pink Peg. and I downloaded an episode. Well, back then, I think they only had about 30 or 40 episodes, and I downloaded all of them, and I binge listened to all of the blue peg, pink pegs, and I just fell in love with those folks. And subsequently, that following year, Josiah and I got to play a game of Shogun with Patrick and Rob, and I don't remember if Christina was there. I don't think Christina was there at that time. And then just developed a friendship with them, and I became known as the woodworking sheriff because I sent them some woodworking things. And anyway, super great people, wonderful content. If you haven't heard Blue Peg, Pink Peg, check them out. They're one of my favorites.
So that is what's been happening in Babblot. Why don't we, while you sat in your royal throne, move into a sponsor break?
The sponsor break is Arcane Wonders, is our sponsor of the Berkey and Badger board game Babble. And I just got to tell you, Arcane Wonders has been one of my favorite companies. They do such amazing games like the Sheriff of Nottingham, the Dice Tower Essential line of games, of course, with Good Critters and Royals. They also did Spoils of War. They have Smartphone and Smartphone Inc., Dragon Scales, Volcanic Island. They recently did 2 big Kickstarters, Foundations of Rome and Freedom 5. And you can still late pledge for Freedom 5. So you can go to arcanewonders.com, late pledge there. But they have 2 brand new games. They have a game called Four Gardens. Super exciting from the production look of the game. It's very interesting where it has a large type of pagoda in the center, and it looks very beautiful. They also have expansions for aquatic. There's the graphic for Four Gardens, as you see there. I haven't played the game, so I can't speak to it, honestly. I have talked to them, though, and we're going to be getting a copy, so down the road we'll be able to talk about it a little bit more intelligently. But it looks great, and knowing the development team there, I'm always confident that they put out high-quality games. So with that, you can check them out at arcanewonders.com.
Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum.
Cha-cha.
I've forgotten how to switch off screen share.
I think with that, we're going to move right on into our topic, things that make you go,
It is that one.
This is the Board Game News, where King Berkey reflects on some of the current things happening in the board game industry. Some may be good, some may be bad, but they're all things that made our king go,
Woohoo! Well, one of the things that has made me go, has been this entire year of COVID. Following the news, I regularly look at the ICV2 website. I get their newsletters, so a lot of times they have new information. There's a lot of information regarding things that are happening in the comic book industry, things that are happening in the game industry, tabletop space. The thing that I noticed this last year was talk about how the gaming hobby is actually done, particularly financially during this time. There was a lot of concern that this could burst the bubble, so to speak. And what we found out is that a lot of companies actually did pretty well. There's those that did not. The game stores themselves had to really modulate, and many of them didn't make it, which is horribly sad. On the other hand, others have been able to adjust and adapt to different models and have been able to make it work. But one of the things that made me go, was the report from Stonemaier Games. Jamie Stegmaier, one of our favorite people in the hobby. You probably can't see it very well, but I actually have the Scythe-inspired resource mat that Jamie so graciously allowed us to do, that is a Game Topper product. It's not an official Stonemaier Games product, but we actually have this beautiful map sitting in front of you. I can move my camera. You can't see it. But it's this beautiful, beautiful mat that we worked with him on, and he's been such an encouragement in the hobby to so many people. And so I found this to be really wonderful news, just really encouraged for him. But their sales were up 40% in a COVID year. Their sales go up in 2020 to $17.9 million from $12.8 million.
Wow.
That's huge. And in a time that's been very difficult, the thing that made me go, was it was exciting to see they had a hit game, okay, called Wingspan. Many of you know that, many expansions. But Wingspan, actually, the company it was their top seller. They sold 447,000 copies of Wingspan.
Impressive.
I mean, that's just like blow your mind, exciting numbers. I know that he wasn't prepared for that when the game first launched, and there was crazy, there was only 10,000 copy print run, and they just couldn't keep up, and everybody was screaming for the game, and you were seeing horrible aftermarket prices out there on the product. And then Scythe, which is one of their evergreen titles, was number 2 at 73,000 copies.
Still good.
Which, yeah, when you see 447,000, you go, oh my goodness. And 73 doesn't sound like a big number, but you got to realize there's a lot of games that don't ever produce more than 5,000 on its first run.
Yeah.
And here, 73,000, and this game has been around for a while, and it is still selling like crazy.
And it's not a medium weight game. It's a large box, which is, is testament. I mean, it's easy to sell that many probably kind of small box party games like Codenames or something like that. But for a game which is a bit more heft to it and has a particular audience as well, takes tip the hat there. Well, tip the hat for me.
Tip the top to Jamie Stegmaier for Stonemaier Games, doing a great job with their games. Of course, they're great games, and that's half the battle. You got to have a great game, but Jamie's done a great job building community and building the retailer community. And the article actually goes on and talks about the different things that Stonemaier has tried to do to engage the retailer channel better and improve. And he's always striving to do that. So, yeah, just fantastic. Super excited for them. And I really wish that for all of our board game publishers, that those that are doing things right and working hard and doing good for the community, that they would prosper. So I'm very excited for that. That was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Kickstarter doesn't seem to be slowing down, which is also a kind of a benefit as well, probably of this pandemic. It seems to be going from strength to strength, and people still pledging and backing these big games and even the small ones. So, yeah, it's been
exactly
interesting year.
Well, I think before we go into our next segment, we're going to do our good, the not so bad, and the ugly segment where we talk about games that we played. We want to take a brief amount of time to talk about our other sponsor.
This video was made possible with the help of Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience with a Game Topper.
This is a selfless plug from Game Toppers, of course. And, I never feel... I don't want to overburden our listeners with Game Topper information, but Game Toppers is my life. I mean, it's something that plays a really important role. And when you immerse yourself in the hobby, you talk about what you're passionate about. And we have been so passionate about upgrading everybody's gaming experience. And a Game Topper, that's exactly what it does. It upgrades every game that you play. And I just wanted to talk about our upcoming Kickstarter, April 20th. I'm just going to take a few minutes longer than normal. So if you're listening to this, you can scroll along if you're not interested, but I'm not going to take an excessive amount of time. But we're so excited because we have some new stuff. One of the things that our game toppers have always done has been a really nice, affordable solution that's high quality to upgrade your own table into a permanent gaming solution. And then you can take it off, you can take it to game night, beautiful storage bags, things of that nature. But now we have a new innovation we've been working on for over 2 years. It's our new leg kit. Barry has a couple pictures. There you're seeing the underside of our topper. And this has the corner brackets that actually screw into the Generation 2 and all of our ongoing game topper rails. Then the legs screw right into that. They're very stable, more stable than like these plastic folding tables that work well. It's not like it's a heavy duty farm table. It's not quite at that level of strength type of thing. I mean, it's very strong. The first thing I did when we were prototyping, I said, I need to know that these things work and that they're going to be sturdy and that they're going to be long lasting. And the first thing I did is I jumped right up on the top of that table, all 230 pounds of my barge, and I jumped right on it, and man, it just held me great. I'm super thrilled with it. We were able to make them affordable. In addition, we have a new cross support. If you go back to that picture real quick, you'll see there's a center support and cross supports that actually will work now for the Watson and our #1 selling Watson and Holmes toppers. So the Adler, the Lestrade, the Watson, and the Holmes can be full-blown gaming tables now, but still have the portable feature and the topper feature. So that's one big innovation. The other thing we're doing is we have these brand new dining covers. Take a look at this picture. This is a simulation, but we actually have the powder-coated prototype here that's made out of the same material that our mat racks are made out of. Really nice, soft, rounded edge, easy system with a leaf storage bag. So you could turn these covers basically into a full-blown dining table, or if you want to have a game set up underneath and then play another game on top of it that's even a little larger than the topper vault, you can do that. We also have some crazy awesome new game mats. I mean, people know us for the quality of our mats. They're 3mm premium stitched edge. We have spared no expense with the artists that we've got, and we have a mat from one of the premier board game artists, Vincent Dutrait. It's called The Great Wall. And look at this thing. We played Dragon Castle on this the other day, and it was like, oh, I couldn't stop looking at it. It's so cool. Vincent was fantastic to work with, but he just knocked it out of the park, I think. And the center of the mat is real generic, so it won't interfere with your board game play, but this beautiful environment is all the way around. We also have a new Rome theme mat. This here is from our artist Jaroslav Radecki, who did Reavers of Midgard. He did our #1 selling Viking mat, Scythe-inspired mat, and our fantasy mat, which are already very high selling products of ours. But this Rome mat is so gorgeous. On my birthday, we played Concordia and the game Tribune on it, and we just couldn't stop looking at all the detail in there. It was so fun. It just created that extra environment, which our game mats do. And we have another mat I just want to tease too that is, I think might be my new favorite. These other two I just love, and I love the Viking mat so much. I love all of my mats. They're all like my kids. But we have the new Pirate mat. And this here mat was inspired by a conversation I had with Jamie Keggy from the Secret Cabal, where we wanted to have a downward looking view with a pirate hat. And I put in, he's got the bottle of rum there and the knife stuck in the table. And the art of this mat it's off the hook. I love it. Just
Captain Hook.
yeah, it's off the Captain Hook. There's just so many things, doing a project like this it's an immense task. We have new premium walnut, like the topper that I'm sitting at right now is our new Moriarty 4 foot by 4 foot with premium walnut inlays. Yeah, look at that. You see our new, there's a good shot of the custom scythe mat and the premium walnut rails. You have our collapsible cup holders, the dice tower accessory system, and component trays. And we're doing the Mycroft in the walnut also, and the Adler 3 foot by 4 foot topper. So lots of super fun stuff. There's a ton more on the Kickstarter coming April 20th. And you can see I'm pretty excited about it. We've been working our tail off to make sure this is something that's going to be really great for people. And we'd love it if you would help us share our campaign so that we can make our goal and our mission of upgrading everybody's gaming experience reality. So thank you so much. And with that, we're going to move on to our next topic, the good, the not so bad, and ugly.
The good, the not so bad. Wait for it. And the ugly.
You got old Santa in that picture.
Yeah. Old Robert Searing has joined us in the castle, and he says he just can't stop looking at you, Berkey.
Robert, how are you, good friend?
Check out my hook while my DJ revolves it.
I'm seeing the chat in SteamYard, but not on YouTube. So I'll just go to the chat in SteamYard. How's that?
Yeah, that would be better.
All right.
It's all there.
There it is. You haven't seen this beard like this before, huh, Robert? Robert's a good friend of ours at Insert Here Now. Makes some really cool foam inserts and even some plastic molded ones. So check them out over there.
Definitely worth checking out. I've got a couple of them myself, and they do help the game set up easier, and they're not too heavy inside the box, and it's just a nice way of storing your game, so you're not putting everything in baggies or letting it just rattle around. So
yeah, absolutely.
Insert here .now.
I think it is, or .me.
.me.
Yeah,
that sounds
.me,
right.
I think.
Yeah. Plug.
Well, so tell us a little bit about what you've been playing then.
Yes, in our good, not so bad and ugly section, this is our first impression segment where we talk about games that we've played for the very first time, and we turn it into a kind of game. So the other player tries to guess what game we're talking about, and then tries to guess whether we think it was either good, bad, or ugly. And you too can join in with the fun by trying to guess as well. Aha. So, yes, I had chance while we were kind of semi-unlocked but locked to play with my good friend Guillaume. We managed to play some board games. Oh, it feels good.
Oh, cool.
This first game is a brand new game, which is just about coming out. I played the prototype, which was sent to me. And in this game, players are diving. And they are trying to see who can dive the furthest.
Oh,
and
I think I know what this is. Okay, keep going.
And they are doing this by looking at a kind of like a little swimming pool, but it's not a swimming pool. It's supposed to represent the sea. And it's all these little layers of plastic, see-through, kind of semi-see-through transparent, like in the game Gloom, but with little fish drawn on it, and there's sharks and there's turtles and there's seaweed and there's other things on there. And because they're transparent, you're trying to evaluate the layers and what's on what layer. And what you're trying to do is avoid sharks, but also pick up help from the turtles and the manta ray, which are on there as well. And you're doing this in a kind of bidding system. You'll have your own little player board. You'll have 5 tokens labeled 1 to 5, and you'll be placing these out in an order depending on the layers of this little swimming pool. And what you're trying to do is outbid the other players by saying that there is no shark here, or there is a shark here, to gain the benefits of the manta ray and the turtles to help you dive a bit more deeper. And that's the game. Basically, it's a bidding game where you're using observation to determine which layer the sharks are on or not on, and trying to guess right so you can swim a bit deeper than everybody else.
Okay. No, it's not what when you first started, I thought it was something else. I thought it was that little oink game, underwater or deep sea dive, I think it's called.
Deep dive. Okay.
Yeah. But not, I guess I don't know what you're referring to. This sounds really good. I like bidding games like that. And then you're bidding to be able to kind of take advantage of information that's hidden. Is that right?
Not really hidden. You're just trying to deduce. It's an observation game. Robert thinks that it's Go Fish. But
well,
no.
I don't know what this game is. This game made in the United States, or
this game is made in Belgium. Sit-down games are in Belgium. And this game is called Dive. And as you can see, this is a prototype.
Okay.
Hit the microphone. And it's for 2 to 4 players. You can play solo. There's a solo variant in here. And as I said, you're basically an observation game. You'll have this plateau in the middle of the table with these transparent, as I said, like the transparent cards. But they're all layered. There's like about 50 of them. And they're all layered, and you're just like looking at the top 5 layers. Well, you're observing the top 5 layers, and you're trying to figure out if there's a shark there or not. And if you get it right, and you bid the highest, you gain the benefit on that tile, so to speak. So there you go.
Okay.
So it's transparent. There's a ray there. Yay! It's swimming across my face. But, each tile has all this decoration, so it kind of obscures things, but at the same time,
it's a little hard to see there with the glare, but...
Yeah, but, you're basically just observation, trying to guess which layer, which tile the fish are on and what on, the sharks are on, or the turtles are on, and outbid, saying that on layer 2, there's no sharks, but I'm going to bid 5. And if that 5 is higher, then you get the benefit of whatever's on there, if there's turtles or a manta ray.
And how do you win the game?
There's a score point, which when you pass, it ends the game on that round. And so whoever's dived the deepest on the scoreboard is the winner.
Okay, so it plays pretty quick.
It does play pretty quick. It's a family-like kind of game. So
yeah, I think you like those kind of games because you like to play that with your kids. So I'm going to say you think it's good.
I'm going to say not so bad.
Okay.
I feel that the game has a longevity. It's one of those games that you'll play, but you won't come back to it immediately because there's this great idea of the observation and these wonderful, images and things and trying to deduce. But once you've got used to roughly seeing the transparency, and figuring out that shark looks like it's 3 layers down, and then it just becomes a bidding game, kind of like a liar's dice, but without the suspense, so to speak. So this is a good family game, but I don't think it's a gamer game because it will become quite dull pretty quickly. As we found, we played it once and then we thought, yeah, that's fine. Next game. But it's a great idea. I wish there were more games like it, but they did something else apart from the bidding. If it was like maybe a murder mystery, or maybe something an extra level of technical thingy-be-jiggy in it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's pretty basic, is what you're saying. Yeah, I can understand that. That would get a little redundant, but
yeah, there are some special powers. Each player can take a different tile of a different creature, and each of them are kind of like a one-shot power that they can use to cheat and bend the rules. But apart from that, it's not so bad.
Cool. Well, I have a game that I played that I think is from it. Well, definitely from a very predominant designer. It's a game that I had on my wish list for over a year. I hardly buy any new games. I support a lot of Kickstarters because a lot of friends I have in the hobby, and even if I honestly don't want any more games right now because I'm so busy with the business, I hardly get to play them, and they come in and I'm not able to get at them. So it bugs me. My shelf of shame continues to grow, but this particular game came in stock. I don't have a local game store here that I can buy from. It was from one of my favorite online places, Miniature Market. Anyway, it comes on and becomes available, and this is an upgrade to another game. In my opinion, when I say upgrade, I mean a new evolution of it, a more expanded version on steroids, if you will.
Okay.
And I got the expansion with it, which I haven't played yet, but was able to play the actual game. And this is a game where you're actually building kind of like a city building type of thing, except it's in medieval times. So you're building a wall, you're building cathedrals, you're building markets, and you're putting them on a player board. And there's a limited amount of these components, and you're actually getting resources to do this. And there's a little bit of engine building in the game. Mm-hmm. And it really comes from an idea of a real popular roll and write game. Wow. And do you know what I'm referring to?
Possibly. It's the Matt Leacock game.
Correct.
Which I've been meaning to buy, but I can't think what it's called for some reason.
It's called Era. E-R-A. Era.
Yeah.
And really, the production value of the game, there's some interesting things about it. But you have this player board that you actually have your castle walls that you plug into these little holes, and everything fits really nice. You've got all kinds of different buildings, and when you have certain buildings that are next to one another, you may get extra points because they're next to one another. There can also be problems depending on the dice that you roll. You could have a plague happen for buildings that are clustered together. So there's some strategy about how you do that. You can get additional dice, which are additional ability to get more food, because you got to pay for your workers. Your dice are your workers. So you need to get more farms so you can pay more food, and it's basically from the game Roll Through the Ages, and the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, that was the roll and write. It basically takes that type of mechanism. And yet there's these other building cards that you can get that allows you to upgrade and get more resources, modify different things. And that's essentially what the game is. If you've been familiar with that other game, I hope that explains that okay. But what do you think I think about this game?
Well, I know that I've played it once and I fell in love. Because it wasn't just the aesthetics of all these wonderful printed 3D pieces. It was the fact that it was just enjoyable kind of dice bag rolling game. And it didn't feel like a roll and write. I've never actually thought of that as a roll and write. So I love the game. So I presume that you do too.
Yeah, it's I think that this game is very good.
Yeah.
I have a caveat. There's a problem. It has been somewhat fixed. From my understanding, the retail copies now come with the boards that come with it. There's beautiful board production. All of the cities, all of the cathedrals and the markets and all the farms, they're beautiful. And it blows my mind that all these little pegs fit perfectly in all these configurations. So impressed with it. But the player boards are yellow. And you cannot see any of the icons that are stamped in there. You can't see it. So a lot of people complained about it pretty vehemently. I didn't know about this until after the fact because I complained about it. And then they said, oh, yeah, this is a known problem. So they made a different version where those icons are painted or they come with some stickers or something. Okay. Mine did not come with those, so I have to find out if I can do that. But a lot of people on BGG, Board Game Geek, had a forum where they actually painted and washed so that you could actually see those things better. That's the only negative. Everything else about this game I just adored. This was so much fun. We played it twice in a row, and I can't wait till we play the expansion. Yeah. And you played it under an hour. We were all engaged. We couldn't wait to do it. The second time, I doubled my score, so I got better at it. Josiah still kicked our butts, but that's a given whenever we play games with him. Unless I have more randomness, I'm not going to beat him generally.
Yeah, yeah. And again, there's player interaction, but it's very limited because you're basically just concentrating on your board and making sure that everything fits right, and you're not going to outplace yourself. That's the worst thing. Is like you don't build enough walls to score enough points, and someone else does, and it's like I did the wrong configuration or I got the wrong dice. So yeah, but definitely a game I want to come back to.
Yeah, I think it's a big win. So, and now that's the other games were from Eagle Griffin Games. Roll Through the Ages, the Iron Age, Bronze Age, but this here is from Eggert Spiel. So it's in a big box instead of those little boxes. It's in the great big Ticket to Ride size type box.
Okay, yeah.
So what was another game you played? I see Kabuki Kid's in the house. Woo-hoo!
She made it along. Nice to see you, Kike.
Hey, it's been a long time. Good to hear from you.
So this game might be a bit obscure for you because it's a print and play, but they're available to buy. It's a roll and write game. Let's just say I'm not the biggest fan of roll and writes because they feel like you're playing bingo but without prizes. Yeah. But in this roll and write, you basically just print off your own village with all these Indian messengers who are drawn on roads that run in between, and you're basically doing a message system. You'll start with one Indian, and you'll choose one of the Indians on the outskirts of your map, and then you start rolling dice and adding and choosing the number to go into one of the messages that they are sending, and they'll send it to another Indian, which is marked in another corner, and you're just basically just going to be spreading out from this one Indian to all these other Indians, this letter that they're sending. And what you're trying to do is make little enclosures. Once you've made an enclosure, if the numbers are all sequential, so 2, 3, or 4, then you score for whatever is in that cloister, whether it be a village or whether it be a field of llamas or whether it be something else. And that is basically that. That's the game. I just remembered I gave you the name of the game away in the first words I said was dive. In this game, you're going to be diving.
Oh,
I kind of I didn't really give out the name of the game here.
Well, I'm not familiar with this game. Again, it's probably obscure. A lot of times, I don't see the international game offerings as easily.
Yeah. So this game is called Inca Llama, and it's by Superlude. They've got like it's about 8 games that they've decided while in the confinement to do his print and play games. Well, actually, one of those is not print and play because I've got the actual physical copy there. But, it might be they might have done a print and play version of it. But yeah, it's basically a sheet that you print out with the rules that you print out, and as you can barely see the little Indians on the outskirts and in the middle, and you're just basically making cloisters and knocking off points. And every time it's just a simple kind of roll and write. It comes with one map. But you can replay and choose a different position. And yeah, I've kind of said all I can say about it, basically.
Well, I think you're going to say, I almost want to say bad, but yeah, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to say you think it's bad or it's ugly.
I did enjoy it. And I've played it a couple of times, but I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's very limited. Again, it's like it's one map, whereas another one of their games, you got two different maps, so you got two different kind of levels. So if you're used to one level, you can play the other level, so to speak. But this one only has one map, and it's okay. It's a nice kind of like, you know what, we're at a restaurant. I'm going to, just get out some paper and 3 dice and a pen each, and that's it. And you can just play it on the table, and that's what we did. Well, we didn't go to a restaurant. We actually sat at the table because we can't go to restaurants. But yeah, but that's what we did, and we enjoyed ourselves. It was fun. It was very easy to learn,
Who produces it?
This is Superlude.
Superlude.
Yeah, I think it's either French or Belgium, a Belgian company. But they normally make small games. So
are you saying it's good, or are you saying
I'm not saying it's
bad?
good. I enjoyed it. It's not so bad, but it is, again, a limited game. You play it a couple of times and you'll probably get a bit fed up of it and never play it again. But it just depends. I mean, circumstances as they are at the moment, it's a case of this could lead into our Babble topic is, you want games where the rules are easy to remember, even if you haven't played the game for like 20 years.
Right. Right. Well, and I think player count has a big influence right now on what we think about games, because we can't play these games at the player counts that we normally would, or what the game is even designed for, because we're not getting together in groups of 4 and 5 and 6 a lot of times. So
this is a game that you can quite easily play on the internet. Everyone gets a print of the sheet, and you could probably have 10 people play at the same time and one person rolling the dice.
We should try to do that sometime.
Yeah, okay. I'll photocopy that off and post it to you.
I've been playing online. This is off topic here, but I've been playing online a new rendition of Spoils of War from Arcane Wonders with Brian Pope and Ryan Bruns and Rick Scrand, who were doing that live on a Zoom meeting, and we've been able to play that. And this new version is less set collection like the first iteration. It's kind of an upgraded. You still have all these special powers, but you actually get to bid, kind of like a bidding track where you can up your bids on what you think things are going to be, and it's really exciting. But it's going to be coming out in the future. So I see Jason Taylor's in the castle. Woo!
First time. Let's take him on a tour. That is an epic follicle forest.
Follicle forest, a follicle forest. I've never heard that said before.
It took me a while to figure out what it was.
That's awesome.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
Well, I have one more that I'll talk about real quick. This is a Kickstarter that came in that I was highly anticipating. It's one of the publishers that I like a lot. It comes from a game called from a publishing company, Gray Fox Games. I love Joshua and Shane, and Lance actually is on the team, Lance Meister at Gray Fox. This is a medieval setting game. It's kind of interesting that the last game I talked about was talking about building castle walls. Well, this one is castle walls too, except now you have people sieging your castles every round. So you better upgrade those wooden palisades to full-blown castle walls and turrets. And this likewise has some interesting engine building, resource management type of mechanisms where you can improve. That Kabuki Kid says, Lance, never heard of him. Yep, me neither. So anyway, it's has a real factor of anticipation and heightened threat. And everybody has their own player board that they're doing this on. So everybody has their own little castle they're trying to build. And, there is some effects that can affect your opponents. And we've only been able to play this twice at 3-player count. But this is the game. Do you know what it's called?
Jason says After the Empire. I was thinking it was Ragnarok.
No, that's the new one that they just finished on Kickstarter. This is After the Empire. Of course, I got the Kickstarter deluxeified version. This game has been in such hot demand that they've actually re-released to produce a deluxe edition because they can't keep up with the demand. People started getting this game and started raving. Tom Vassell did a review on this game. That's a much better review than what I'm talking about here. He loves this game. We played it on our Game Topper castle map, the blue one with the castle ramparts. It was like, it couldn't have been more perfect of an environment to play it on. And man, we just had so much fun playing this game. And the first game, one of my castle walls, they came through, and all my archers that were supposed to have a preemptive strike, the castle wall went down, they go down into the center, the troops come in and they fight. You can get mercenaries, you can get other kinds of troops, but it's a real puzzle doing that well. And but there's cards that come out that you don't know exactly what the enemy is going to be coming, so you have to prepare on all fronts, but you really can't prepare on all fronts great. And I guess if you're smarter than me, you can, but it was just super fun. I already told you.
Yeah, you did. You think this one's good?
I can't really withhold my enthusiasm sometimes.
You're not paid to hold your enthusiasm.
I just think it's a great game. I think this is one of those type of games that maybe could be an evergreen scythe type of product for Gray Fox games, much like Champions of Midgard with the Valhalla. Mm-hmm. I think with Valhalla expansion, it really made that a great game. The Reavers of Midgard is likewise a good game. I just don't think it has the same legs that Champions and now After the Empire is going to have. But that's my lot of varying opinion on that. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, go ahead. One more.
Okay.
We'll move on to our Babble topic.
In this next game, you are building, not a building, but you're building land, but not in this realm. You're building it in an ethereal realm, and you're going to be doing this by moving your sleepwalking playing piece from one space to another. And in those spaces, there are these, I don't know, tokens which represent land, water, stone, and you'll be collecting them and then spending them to try and build kind of like, a layout, a landscape. And this is how you will be generating points, because you're at the beginning of the game, you're going to pick a card which will have a layout, and you will have to lay out these tokens in a particular order which matches that, and then place your little dreaming character on the right space to finally score. You're going to do this for several rounds, going around this main board, going from land to land, picking up these tokens, and then using them to construct your kind of garden full of dream stuff.
Okay.
I wish I could tell you more.
Well, tell me a little more because I'm not quite getting it. So
Okay, so basically,
tell us the name and explain it a little bit more.
yeah, I'll do that because this is a Kickstarter which came last year. It's called Dreamscape
Oh, I did
by
hear about that.
Silex, and it's a kind of I still can't get my head around it because it was one of those games that I played and I was like, I'm trying to understand this, but I'm trying to understand that. It's very simple. You'll have your main board, and each player will have a character on that board, and you will also have your personal board, which is where you're building your dreamscape. And to collect tiles, to get these little tokens of the colors, which represent land, water, stone, and whatever, you have to be in the space on the main board of where they are. And you have to collect them in the order that they're laid out. And if you don't like the ones that are there, you can always move to an adjacent space and start there. But that costs an action. You only have 4 actions.
Is it kind of like Takado?
No. Takado is very kind of, it's just the person at the back moves to whatever space they want and then takes that action. This is more thinky because on this main board, you could take a couple of the colors. So you could take a blue and a green, and that might be the key. The green might be the key to go to the space next to you, but for free. So you don't pay an action to move because there's, as I said, there's like this chain of the colors tokens that you're going to be collecting. And the last one is always the key, which will, as I said, give you a chance to move into a space for free. So you're trying to do that. You're trying to get as many tokens as you can in those 4 actions, and each of the spaces has their own special power as well. So you might be able to just draw a random token from the bag. You may be able to remove tokens from your dreamscape and put them back into your hand, ready to be used the next round, because you might want to move stuff around because you're not just doing one objective. Once you've done one objective, you get another objective, and then that might mean that the water needs to be there instead of where it is, and so
you're getting end game scoring points for fulfilling those objectives.
Exactly. So yeah, you're basically just trying to create a layout of tokens with your dreamer placed on the right space to score points, and you can collect quite a few cards and lose a lot of points if you don't fulfill by the end of the 6th round, or you quite easily score lots of points by just drawing the right card, kind of Ticket to Ride style. Have you made that connection? Yes, I have made that connection there. But it was very ethereal kind of experience because you're trying to puzzle out what to do while learning the game and try to come up with a strategy that would work the best. And so like our game was quite long, probably longer than what it should have been, but it's because each player was really trying to understand the best way to perform the actions to achieve their objectives. And there's a lot of other little intricate things going on there, but it was interesting, and I'm probably going to give it away. I can't wait to play it again, and it kind of whet my appetite. The game seems short. 6 rounds doesn't seem enough. Some of us had enough time to do 2 objective cards. And again, they come in like 3 flavors. So there's easy, medium, and hard. And the first one, you get the easy one, and that's quite easy. But then you get the hard one, and it's like, okay, how do I change what I got?
Who publishes Dreamscape?
This is Silex, which I think is a French company. They came out with this Kickstarter about 2 years ago. I've only just played it recently after having it for about a year, I think, sat on my shelf. But there's expansions, there's other rules that you can play. There's a solo mode, there's a harder mode. So there's plenty of replayability there. And I think the replayability comes from trying to puzzle out what's the best strategy to score as many objectives as possible. and that's got me intrigued. So I do want to play again, and I want to play it again and again and again and again, just to, because it's going to be random every time because of your position.
Sure. So you think it has some variability and
yeah. And again, I've got all the expansion, so there's going to be variability because there's a Mr. Nightmare mode where there's a red pawn and AI moving around doing stuff, and you're trying not to pick up the red tokens. And then there's I don't know what the other expansions do, but it does seem like there's a simple idea, but it's like my head is stuck.
That's awesome. I love that when you want to play them again. That always seems to me that's one of the signs of a good game, and after you've played it 3 or 4 times, if you still want to keep it on your shelf, amongst this plethora of games that we have, it's hard to know whether to keep it, but if you always want to come back to it, I always keep them.
It's kind of the Azul effect. It was like, what the hell am I doing? Why? How does this work? How do I, maximize my points on this? And then after the second game, you're like, okay, I've got a system. I'm going to try that. And then you try a different system. You try a different. It's the same thing over and over again, but it's like just trying to figure out how this simple gameplay kind of, creates a puzzle in your mind, and you kind of like sometimes stumble on a step or you block against a wall because you can't think, what's the best thing for me to do? What should I take? And so I like that in a game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this again. And it's very aesthetic, very pastel-y kind of. Yeah.
Cool. So we have Trent Turner, good friend of mine and backer of Game Toppers, helped me at BGG Con, is in the castle, and Board Game Coffee, Mark Maya is here as well. Welcome all.
I think talking of coffee.
We're just, we love Board Game Coffee. And the show, too. So with that, we're done with our good, the not so bad and ugly segment. And we're going to go on to our next topic, the Babble topic.
Yay! I've noticed that we've just missed the players, the poll from the last show. I don't know if you want to do that quickly.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I did miss that. Totally spaced it.
No worries. It's one of those things where we're all over the place. We've got a script written out. It says A, do this, B, do that, C, do. And some reason we just go A, D, B, F, G.
Well, that's because the leader of the show is a little discombobulated. You make everything happen beautifully, but I'm supposed to follow the script.
I'm trying to make everything happen beautifully, but sometimes you forget how that things work.
Okay, what's the poll?
So on our last show, we had Dan King. We were talking about box sizes. And in the question I put, the poll is, okay, now imagine your favorite game has been released in an anniversary or deluxe edition. What do you do? And has this happened to you already? Please tell us in your comments. Okay, so do you resist temptation and just hold on to your original version because you've spent enough money on expansions? Buy the new edition and throw the old one out? Or buy the new edition and keep both editions? Which one do you think got the most votes?
The first one.
The first one. You know what? You'd be right. 49% of the voters said that they would resist temptation and keep hold of their original version. Which I was quite surprised. I thought people would cave in a bit more. I thought that the buy the new edition, keep both would be a bit higher, but no, only got 29%, and 20% said that they'd just throw out the old one.
5 years ago, I would have said that would have been the case, but now we're getting so many games. It's like, well, do I really need that bigger new one?
Yeah.
When I already like Tribune is one of my favorite games. I have the Fantasy Flight version of that. Well, of course, Stronghold Games came out with a Kickstarter where they re-implemented it under their brand, and I was just totally content with my product. I didn't need the new one. And I kind of, I think there might be some of that sentiment. But of course, if it's a new, better, upgraded version, Not like one of our favorite family games is the Days of Wonder Coliseum game. Love that game. Then it was out of print, and so Tasty Minstrel brought it back, but they changed the art, which I hated. I just hated it. But I was so glad the game was reproduced for people to enjoy. But there's no way in heck I was going to buy that new game, because it, in my opinion, wasn't as good,
Yeah. There's a Babble topic there. Reprints that are just reprints, or like the Fantasy Flight, they reprint a game and it's like second edition, so the rules are different.
Right.
But anyway, yeah.
Make a note of that.
Yeah, make a note of that. While we go into our...
And now it's time for the Babble, 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 Berkey and Badger's Board Game Babble.
Yes, Trent, it does depend on if you have it already or not.
Yeah, that is true. That's absolutely true. Well, we're talking about the Babble topic, and the Babble talk is about rules. Tell us a little bit more, Sir Jester Badger.
I will do. I'm probably going to go off script because
Kabuki Kid says that's the way to make good music. You don't follow the scale, and I agree. Ad lib as much as you can.
That's true. Yeah, I just play my fingers around. And whatever notes I hear, I think, oh, that sounds good. That doesn't sound good.
It's always the most interesting that way. Then it's not this can thing. I hate that.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. So anyway, off the rails. Basically, this topic came about because, as I said, we haven't been playing games in this pandemic. And when we do get the opportunity and someone, a close friend comes round and says, let's play some games. And they say, let's play that. And you look at that game and you go, I wish I could remember the rules off the top of my head so we can just open the box and start playing instead of fiddling through the rule books.
Right.
And trying to remember what this does, what that does. And it kind of plagues me. It's like, do games need standardizing in their rules? Do game rules need to be more kind of organic, or do game rules just really need to be complicated? Could they not just be simple? So now I've gone off the script. Rules, an important part of the game. They are actually the game. But are you like me, fed up with reading them over and over again because you've forgotten what they are, or they're too complex, or because you haven't played the game in a while, which is what happened? So we are going to babble about rules. Should they be complex? Should they be standardized? Should they all be made that the players can all just jump right in? Now, I know that you don't like reading rules.
Well, I was just going to say exactly that. I have a rules master here. His name is Josiah, my son.
Yeah.
And so I've never seen anybody like it, honestly. I've played a lot of games with a lot of really smart people, really fantastic gamers, but I do know a few. But I mean, Josiah he will read that thick rule book, 20-30 page rule book. He'll read it in 20-30 minutes, literally, and he'll be able to teach the game well, and he'll be able to already understand and assimilate the strategy. Now, he's a super sharp kid, but he's a good communicator too, and he just understands gaming mechanisms well. He understands the English nomenclature of how different words are phrased and what that actually means when it's talking about particular game mechanisms. So he doesn't have to analyze it much, where I read something and I have to go, what do they mean specifically by that? And sometimes the complexity of rules have gotten to be more and more as gamers, especially heavier gamers are looking for more complexity. They're looking for all that depth. Well, that requires more in-depth rule sets. And so anyway, I really don't enjoy it. It's work for me to read the rules. So I'm the guy that's going to watch the video first, a how to play video, like Dan King does these awesome rule schools or watch a Rodney Smith or someone like that. And then I'll go back to the rules and check out any details. But generally speaking, Josiah is there to help me with a lot of our gaming or that kind of thing. So that's the perspective in this topic that I'm going to come from.
Yeah, no problems. As the person that does the rule reading in this house, I am glad I have friends like my friend Guillaume, who is French, but I give him an English rule book and he can read it quicker than me. He understands. He's more like Josiah, but it's like you ask him to speak English and he's all over the place. But reading English, not a problem. He spent like the past 20 years reading English rule books and he understands rules pretty quickly. So yeah, Trent put a comment up. We need a company that does cliff notes for board games. Yeah. This is funny because I do remember there was a website that I used to go to get cliff notes for games. And I remember getting some printouts for Arkham Horror, 2nd edition, where it was a case of, they did a sheet, which is the setup. So it explained everything on the setup. And then it had the game flow as well. So what happens on the first phase, second phase, third phase, and fourth phase, the cleanup. I can't remember what the phases were called, but it was like 2 pages. And, just to have a look at it and just reading the name and then just reading a little bit of that text was like, okay, yeah, that's how that game plays. Okay, yeah. And then you were away.
Right.
Because,
well, I know a guy. I know a guy.
You know a guy.
Excuse me. Trey Lennox. He's a good friend of mine, Trey and Mariana. They live down in Texas, and we game together regularly at Dice Tower Con or BGG Con. But I've had the opportunity to play test a lot of games with him, as he's a good friend of Brian Pope, the owner of Arcane Wonders. And so we've play tested some Richard Lanius games and other Arcane Wonders games. And he's brilliant too. Trey, I've never seen anybody as intense as Trey playing board games, because when he goes to a convention, he has a list of 30 games and he's hell bent on getting through those games, man. I mean, let's quit screwing around. I'm here to play games. I mean, he's, I want to screw around.
Yeah.
I want to play a few games.
I have sat down and played a couple of games with him and Tom. So,
and he's great. Don't get me wrong. It's just he's on a mission, and he made a complete set of cliff notes, these easy bullet points of a ton of games. And I don't remember where to find it. I know he's got a Board Game Geek forum where he actually has a geek list of all of this, and it's really quite brilliant. Where he has these highlighted cliff notes, if you will, for a ton of games.
Yeah. I just Kabuki saying that publishers should do that. They should do cliff notes, and I could quite easily say that Fantasy Flight have stepped up their game. I know that with Imperial Assault, they did a very thin rule book, which you kind of like learn how to play as you're reading. So it tells you, okay, this is that, do this, and then you do it. And so you're playing the game as you're flicking through the pages, so you get to feel the first couple of turns. And that was a really good idea. And then by the end of that little booklet, you were playing like the basic scenario. And if there was a word on a card that you didn't understand, they had another book which was like a dictionary for all the slang, all the words, what they meant, what this does, what that does, and then explained it. So you could just quickly flick through that. That I found was genius for Imperial Settlers. And it's like, Imperial Settlers, Imperial Assault. But definitely some game companies do that. They do that on the back of the rule book. If you notice, it's like the game flow. And sometimes just looking at a game flow will remind you about the game. I dragged my daughter in here this afternoon, and we played Castle Planet, and they just got a little card, and it was like a fish duck to water. It was like, how many cards did you get? And it's there on the card, and it's like, okay, draw your cards, do this, do that, and we were just playing. We didn't need to look at the rule book. Which is fantastic, but that's a light game compared to something like Imperial Assault or Arkham Horror. And so, therefore, there's that dilemma.
I played some games with Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules Vids, and he oftentimes teaches his game a little bit more like in that step-by-step progression rather than all the information given first. Now, some gamers, they need all that information first or they don't feel secure in playing the game. I'm not that way at all. I'd rather, I want to know enough of the rules, but I want to get into the game and start learning it as I go. But I want to have the main things. I want to know the end game conditions. And I find with rules, if someone's teaching me the rules, if they don't tell me what the goal of the game is first, I have a hard time listening to all of the details until I want to know that first. Then the details will start to make sense to me why I'm doing it.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. I'm not worried about the end goals. I'm just worried, I just want to know what I'm going to do on my turn. How does this work with that? How does that work with this? And then I just do experimentation. And then once the game's finished, I've normally lost, which is not a problem because I had an experience. But it is a case of, step by step. I like that approach. You learn this, you learn that, you learn that, and you learn that. And then by the end of the game, you know the game. So then you can just go, okay, let's play again. And this time with this kind of objective and understanding, which is what I liked about Dreamscape. It was like step by step, we were learning the game as the round was read out. And it was quite simple, but it was a brain freeze on the fact that what is the best way to do this?
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get off subject there.
Well, one of the things I think we should talk about real quick, because this has been a struggle for me personally. There were times as my gaming collection increased. Of course, it's been a little over 3.5 years of Game Toppers. So my life has changed so dramatically with, an emerging company that's growing very quickly and doing big things with a small staff. I haven't had the time, and my mind is really distracted too. So by the end of the day, my life is a heavy Euro. It's 12 hours of heavy Euro. That's my life, constantly fixing and analyzing and all that. By the end of the day, I often don't have much left to think about a complicated rule set. And as my gaming collection grew, and I look at those games, I remember the experiences. They're still with me, but the details of the rules, they've become more and more vague the longer that it's been since I played them. And I recently was asking a person about, I said, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I said, I'm not that old and I manage a million things. People are kind of amazed at all the things that I do, but I'm like in my own head, I'm going, I can't remember how that works. And it's making me feel like I've lost some brain cells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people have continually come to me and said, or have reinforced that, oh, we have that same problem. We have to go back and read these rules again to refamiliarize myself. Whereas my son seems to retain it and I don't retain it. And I think part of it is that some of these rule books of the games that we love, they're kind of complex. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. And unless you've played the game 1,000 times, I could say 1,000 times, but I've played Arkham Horror a bucket load of times and I still can't remember the rules. If you asked me to play it now, I'd have to read the rule book. But there are games that have rules that stick with you. For example, a quite complex game is Dungeon Pets. There's a lot. My
shelf of shame, and I still haven't played it.
There's a lot of intricate moving parts, but I think its saving grace is in its shield. In the shield, you have these images, which are the game flow, and just quickly looking at the images will remind you, okay, in this phase, it's the market phase. In this phase, it's the bidding phase. In this phase, it's the auction phase. What do I do with the cards? Oh, and here it says that we have to assign them to the pets. And then in the next phase, we have to use them to do the auction. And then afterwards, we discard them. And it's all on these little icons on your player board. And so whenever we play, it's a case of, okay, what happens next? The only thing we need to check the rulebook for is maybe a bit of setup. But then again, that is very organic because of the cards are this shape or this color, and they go on the board in this space and that space.
But sometimes too, the thing with the games is there's so many similarities in game mechanisms from one game to the next, or one game has improved on the same mechanism, and I'll sometimes get those jumbled up, from one game to the next. Thinking, okay, this one does it. Oh yeah, that's that game.
Yeah. And I mean, should it be standardized? I mean, we all think of dice for combat, and we all think of dice for moving. But they're easy things to slip back into. I mean, you can look at a game and go, okay, right, yeah, this has got dice. Okay, there's lots of spaces on the board. Okay, we're going to be using the dice to move, and then you can just jump into the game. But where ingenuity is taken over, this is good. I'm not slating ingenuity on design, but it makes it a bit harder to jump straight into a game unless you have that kind of mentality to adjust and adapt pretty quickly.
I think a good example might be trick-taking games, for instance. Trick-taking is a pretty simple mechanism that a lot of folks, understand. But now there's been so many derivatives of trick-taking games. I think of Mike Fitzgerald's design of Diamonds, which is just is an enhanced version of Whist in a sense. That type of, or Spades even almost, it's a derivative type of thing. Other trick-taking games like, I just lost the name, over Camelot.
Tournament of Camelot.
Tournament of Camelot. There was so much variability in the different type of abilities that your cards would allow in the trick-taking process that built upon one another, that made it much more interesting than just standard trick-taking. No, that's fine. We love playing trick-taking games. I mean, we played the mess out of Whist and Pinochle. I love those games. But I personally, I think that the answer is pretty obvious. As gamers, what's made this hobby so great is just the incredible diversity of board games that provide all these different things. And we're all looking for that new, remember when Dominion came out and deck building was a thing? Yep. Well, now look at all the things that have happened with deck building. Yeah. Well, that's all been about these new rules, these new things. But because of that complexity, it makes it harder and harder to remember all of those things.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, I was going to say, Dominion is like one of those games which will have the rules that I will remember to the day I die, like Snakes and Ladders.
5 cards, yeah.
5 cards, yeah. You put 10 things in the middle, you get X amount of money and X amount of victory points. It's 7 money, and then I think 3 victory points at the beginning in your hand, and then you're away. And you just do what's written on the card. Some of it's like written in front of you, and then the game just goes. Some of it's organic, that when you start playing like Dungeon Pets, you just follow the flow of the game. But some of it is just juts, and there's juxtaposition of the actions and what you're doing to what turn comes next. I've totally gone blank on a game which does that. Yes, Survive Escape from Atlantis. There's always that phase where you forget to roll the dice at the end to see what creature moves. For some strange reason, people just forget about it. But it's on the board. It's written on the board. There's the shark moves 1 space. 2 spaces. The whale moves 4, and then it's written on the board there. But you just forget at the end of your turn. You move your man, and you're like, yes, I'm not dead. I'm not dead. Turn a tile. Oh, I'm going to kill you. That's my turnover. And I got green tile. Keep that for later.
I think this is a good thought that we can ask people about. But rules complexity, it's almost like it's a whole nother topic. But does rules complexity make for a convoluted game in a sense? Does it? What I'm trying to say is, what drives me nuts in games is when there's excessive little piddly rules that you have to look up that are kind of obscure, but you have to know them, otherwise the game doesn't play correctly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a couple that has happened to us, and so we're spending all this time on a forum trying to find out what this means or how that works, because it's not intuitive. It's a little detailed, complex rule but the game is designed to meet it, and if you miss it, it causes the game to not work well. I'm trying to think. There was just one just not very long ago we played, and I went, that doesn't seem right, and it took us forever to figure it out, and sure enough, we were playing it wrong because the rule wasn't clear.
Yeah. I remember Arkham Horror was like that for me. The whole when you move around, and if you move into space with another character, or if you move into space with a monster, what happens always bugged me. I always had to go back in the rule book and verify what happens. Do I have to end my movement, or do I then try to sneak and then see if I survive the sneak or whatever? And it was like, get it in the rule book. And that's why I printed off that cheat sheet, as I said, that I got. And that had a flow chart which showed you what to do. And it was just easy to reference that. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Sometimes there's a game, it's got a rule, and it's like, okay, what happens here? Let's get out the rule book. And then you got to find it, because it's not clearly placed out as like it's not hinted at as a problem. Some rule books, they do that. They do a little highlight box, don't they? And they say, remember that this does that. And you're like, yes.
Yeah, I prefer rules in general to be a little more simple. I tend to not play the games that I have to read a 50-page rule book or have to remember that, or that the rules teach takes 45 minutes. I have to plan a whole day for that type of game. I do like some of them, don't get me wrong. I play some heavy Euros that I love. Like, I love Kanban, and everybody talked about Kanban being such a difficult game to teach. And for me, it just made a lot of sense. It was simple right away. I got it. There was other games that had that level of complexity that I just couldn't wrap my head around. But games like Great Western Trail, Alexander Pfister games tend to be fairly complex. I have no problem with them. The Twilight Imperium 4. I mean, that's a big deal reading that rule book, which I didn't do. But the game makes sense to me. But I did have to refresh myself quite a bit to get back to where I remembered how we did the different stages of the game. And one thing that this is a little off topic, and we're going to close up here pretty quick, but one thing that I enjoy personally about rules is when there's some flavor to the rules. I think of games like Galaxy Trucker. I love that game. And the way that rule book is written, Vlado Chvátil and the team there at CGE, they added a little bit of dramatic comedic flair to the rule book. And to me, it just helped me understand the rules, actually, even though it was a little silly. Some people hate that. I love that. I remember my son Josiah reading the 3 books to me while we were driving to the Fantasy Flight game store many years ago. The Twilight Imperium 3 at the time, all of the backstory. And it made that game come so alive to me and refresh my memory about why the rules did what they did, because it was so tied together with the story. So I love that in rules books and explanations.
Yeah, and again, things like that would then help the flow of the game, don't they? I mean, sometimes it's the wording of each phase that triggers a memory of what you've got to do this turn. You know, it's like viticulture as well. You say this season, okay, this is what happens in this season. I there are other games I can't think all of a sudden. It's strange, but you know, there's these phases, and you just go, okay, this is what happens. Oh, the cleanup phase. That's pretty self-obvious, but yeah, and it's all laid out. It's either laid out on the board, it's either on a little handy cheat card, and that just makes the game flow easy. As well as when you put it on the table, you go, okay. That happens, and then that happens. All right, this is the rules, and then you start explaining.
And that brings up a really good point about rules too. And we're talking about refreshment of our memory and all that kind of stuff. Is when games have really good player aids.
Yes.
Where they're not too complex. You know, I've had some games where they give you this sheet and it's double-sided, and you got to read through. That doesn't. That's work to me. But when you've got a nice little concise set of, okay, here's this phase, and a bullet point of what it is, it brings it all back. It helps ease the complexity. And when games like that are done, and then especially like we were just talking about kind of the theme of the rule books, like Blood Rage, my favorite game. I love that a lot of the mechanisms in the rules actually make good sense of why you're doing it. It's not just something's there, but there's a thematic reason why we're doing it. And then that really brings me into the rules, the importance of it.
Yeah. Your character needs to walk upstairs. You need to attach 2 dice to a piece of string and then tie them around the light. Okay, that makes sense for why my character is walking up the stairs. Yeah, that's a good rule. I like that. But, you know, yeah, organicness and organic kind of feeling. It's something you've done before, or maybe something which is relevant. You know, just sliding a piece from one space to another because there's an arrow marked on it. Those kind of things really do help get the game going, or remember how the game works. And one of the things I wrote down is, do convoluted rules make for a fun game?
Well,
and I mean, yes,
convoluted is a negative word in the first place. So
is it?
It's like, yeah, convoluted to me anyway is it's unnecessary.
Okay, complex. Do complex rules make for a fun game? It seems that they do, because I looked at Board Game Geek Hotness, and there were lots of complicated, big, heavy titles and Kickstarter titles in there, and I was like, okay, there's no Splendor, there's no Dixit, but it was all these, you know, Everdell and Root and But as long as they have like this, as I said, like this kind of organic, maybe something familiar that you've played before, or as I said, organic. So it's like a flow chart. It's like you do this and then it moves on to that, which moves on to that. You know, they can be fun and they can be easy to remember again. Batman is one that sat across from me. That's an easy game for me to remember how to play. The only thing I have to go back in the rulebook for is to check out everyone's different special power.
Yeah, right. Hey, Brian Lyles is in the castle. Welcome to Babblot, Brian. Good to see you. So he's a good friend of mine, and he's catching us at the end of the show here. We're about ready to wrap up, but
we are indeed.
I think the rules obviously are very important, and I think the games that I like the best are games that have well-written rule books that are easy to understand, easy to read. I do read and comprehend just fine. I just don't like it, especially when they're really just walls of text and not done well. When rule books have nice graphics, when they have nice examples of something that they're explaining to you, that really helps make it more understandable. And those are the type of games that I tend to gravitate towards. Yeah,
I think I don't like rereading rules. It's like you've read the rule book at some stage of my life, and you start reading it again. It's like, oh, I've read this, and my eyes just skim over everything, and it's like, I'm going to teach the game incorrectly now.
And I wonder, that's kind of interesting. I wonder how many people play games the wrong way and then find out they played it wrong. I gotta believe that's all the time, right?
I've got worse and worse over the years. my eyes are just so lazy at reading, and my brain just starts drifting off and thinking, okay, they've mentioned roll the. That's the thing. It mentions roll the dice to see your attack value, and then my brain goes, okay, yeah, that's easy. And I see the next line which says this attack value is only relevant if you are carrying. And so I'm like, yeah, we're playing the game like this. Wrong.
Yeah. Trent brings up a comment. He said, war games are not Berkey's jam. Well, war games are not Berkey's jam to read the rules.
Yeah.
I actually love war games. I just, me sitting down to pour over the rules, it's a slog for me. But we played War Room here back at Christmas time. And I mean, that's a big game. That's a big deal, you know. We played Axis and Allies till the cows came home years ago, and I remember back then thinking that was a huge rule book, and remember reading it. But by today's standards, not so much. But there's some of these really intense war games. I mean, they're a little too much for me.
Yeah, Kabuki's just bring up the war games have the rules that laid out like entry 1.1.75 and stuff like that. I've got some games like that. I don't read the rules at all.
No,
He's just like one look and it's like, no, thank you.
yeah, that's kind of.
I think that's one thing that has evolved is they, instead of putting this 1.1 stuff, they've actually given names to things, and that's how you remember a rule a bit more easier. This phase, that phase, the phase that follows that phase, that's called this phase. Yeah, so that helps your memory as well.
Yeah. Well, with that, do you have any final thoughts, Sir Badger?
No, just hopefully some great publishers and designers take note of all this that we're saying and create games with rules which feel organic, and so like while you're playing you're remembering the rules as you go, and also handy little cheat cards which tell you what things are briefly, so you don't have to read the whole rule book and check how many cards you draw at the end of the turn.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Babble topic. And again, thank you everybody for joining us. It's always a pleasure to see the people join us in the chat, and we get to interact a little bit. And I just love that. Thank you for doing that. And for those of you that weren't able to watch it live, this will be produced as a professional audio edit that Sir Badger does extremely well for iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can check it out there. And you can find out more about Berkey and Badger Board Game Babble Show at Board Games Everybody Should. That's Barry's site. And also you can go to Libsyn and find the download of our podcast, as well as Berkey and Badger on Twitter, Berkey and Badger on Facebook. And of course,
YouTube. We
want to thank our sponsors.
Yes.
Our sponsor, Arcane Wonders, lots of great stuff happening there with their new game, Four Gardens, and the Aquatica expansion. Check it out at arcanewonders.com. And of course, get ready. Game Toppers 3.0 is going to be live on Kickstarter April 20th. Tons of new stuff. It's going to be a blast. Please join us. Please share the information as you see it on social media. We would love to engage with you. And again, with that, Barry, why don't you go ahead and send us on out?
I will do. I can't remember which one it is.
Oh, you can catch us on the Board Game Geek Guild 2248, where Barry will be posting a new poll about board game rules. Board Game Geek Guild 2248. Say that 3 times fast and you win a prize.
3 times. Ooh, what was that? What was that? Ooh,
Titan soundtrack.
That?
Gary's got a Titan soundtrack.
And a Kemet one coming soon.
Kemet soundtrack.
Thanks very much for watching. Take care of yourselves.
See you guys.
We're so glad we had this time together. Now it's time to go. It won't be long until we have another show. So Keep us in mind, get online. Berkey and Badger will be back in no time.
In no time.